Hello, what's happening, guys? This is Rob of Ro2R Review. Welcome back, and today we're discussing Metroid, and we're discussing Metroid in a very, very different way, in a completely different medium than we normally discuss Metroid, and that is the idea of a Metroid movie which has existed for so long. And there's kind of a fun reason to talk about it, so I don't know, let's just jump into this. Of course, really quickly here at the beginning of the video, I want to remind you again, we are doing the Dark Souls Remastered giveaway on the Nintendo Switch. I have this extra copy of the game. I've been playing it like crazy myself, and a lot of you guys know I'm doing my first ever giveaway. So once we hit 10,500 subscribers, which is about 140, 130 or so away from right now, I'm going to be doing the giveaway. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, if you like what I'm doing and you want to enter the giveaway. And follow me on Twitter, because that's how I'll contact you in private to let you know how I'm going to get the game to you. And yeah, so with that out of the way, let's jump into the Metroid talk. So we are revisiting for the first time in a very long time the idea of a Metroid movie. And this has been something that people have been talking about for, I don't know, 15 or so years. People have been asking for, people have been wanting this to happen, Metroid fans and Nintendo fans, and kind of, I think, just gamers in general who would like to see some of the most famous video game franchises turned into some sort of movie entertainment or TV show entertainment, something like that. And there's been some recent traction on the idea, and it's not necessarily anything that people should super get their hopes up for, but it is interesting. It throws quite a bit of an exciting wrinkle into the idea, and that's why I wanted to discuss this. So the reason I wanted to talk about this, and the reason that the idea was kind of reignited in my brain as far as the concept of a Metroid movie, is because just over a week ago, during Halloween, the actress Brie Larson, which many of us will know not only from her fantastic role as Envy Adams in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, but also is known for being Captain Marvel in the upcoming Marvel movie, Captain Marvel. How many times can I say Marvel over and over again there? Yeah, she's awesome. She's a fantastic actress. I love her to death. I think Captain Marvel looks spectacular. She looks great in it. I cannot wait to see how that leads into Avengers 4. And I'm actually considering starting to do some movie conversations and very much discussing things like Avengers, Marvel films, and of course more Star Wars, which I haven't done in a while as well. That being said, she, over Halloween, posted this image to her Instagram of her and a friend dressed up for Halloween, and you can see she's dressed as Zero Suit Samus. And that is freaking awesome. In fact, there's quite a few reasons to love that picture. And, you know, the least of them, not the least of them being the fact that she's dressed up as a pretty awesome-looking Zero Suit Samus. I, as a huge Metroid fan, cannot possibly appreciate more that she decided to dress up as my all-time favorite video game character. I mean, how freaking awesome is that? And of course, that got a lot of people really excited and just kind of posting fun things about, oh, this is so cool, dressed up as Halloween. Dressed up for Halloween, and you're dressed up as this really awesome video game character. That's amazing, you know? And she looks like a great Zero Suit Samus, considering, you know, she's got probably a wig on, and, you know, just probably a simple, like, $40, like a zip-up onesie kind of Zero Suit outfit. But what happened was, somebody on Twitter made an interesting tweet at her, and her response was also interesting, and that had a couple of people really excited about the idea, and actually quite a few people tagged me on Twitter in this as well. So what happened was, Simon Hernandez Arthur made this tweet, and this is a verified person. I actually am just now noticing that, and I did not look into who Simon is, so forgive me on that one. But Simon actually says, Brie Larson dressing up as Samus Aran for Halloween is as close as we're going to get to a Metroid movie, isn't it? And then Brie Larson's response was, I hope not. I want to make that movie. Yo, that is freaking awesome. Suddenly we have a really kick-ass actress who had a lot of fun looking like a really kick-ass Samus for Halloween, stating publicly to the internet and to Twitter that she would like to make that movie and she would like to play Samus in a Metroid movie. Hold the phone. That is amazing. However, we gotta pump the brakes on this. We have to pump the brakes on this, guys. Let's be a little bit realistic when it comes to this. When we actually look at what's going on, this doesn't really mean anything. I think it's pretty obvious that there is no Metroid movie in the works, and Brie is not saying that she knows anything behind the scenes. At least I don't think. She's not saying that she knows anything behind the scenes. She's not saying that she's secretly cast as Samus or any of that stuff, I'm sure. But it is a fun tweet. It is a fun idea, and it does show somebody who would otherwise be in the position to be able to be a part of making a Metroid movie happen, express interest and excitement. She's like, hey, I'd be down. And obviously, she has a lot of action movie heroine clout right now because she is playing a huge role in what is currently arguably the biggest or one of the biggest movie franchises on the planet. To me, it's pretty much the MCU and Star Wars. I mean, these are the two biggest things happening in films right now. And there you go. She's the newest, hottest actress in this MCU world. And they've all but confirmed she's going to play an integral role into wrapping it up in Avengers 4. So she is in the action movie heroine spotlight right now. And that is part of what also makes this more exciting. Not just the fact that, oh, a famous person said that they're interested in making the movie. She has so much clout when you think of the very idea of bringing Samus to life on screen. And so, of course, that got so many people excited. Like I already said, it got me excited. It's got us all thinking. This, I don't think, is necessarily anything that we should take to the bank. Like, oh, this is now going to show Nintendo that they need to do it. But, I mean, hey, man, anything is possible. And I feel like we could live in a world where maybe Nintendo would revisit the Metroid movie. For anyone who might need a primer on the history of Metroid being a movie, there was traction on this idea years ago. I want to say somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 years ago, Nintendo was working and setting up a live-action Metroid movie. I believe they were working on a script, they had a production team, I don't quite know who the movie studio was, but very famously, John Woo, who was a very prolific action director in like the late 90s and most of the 2000s, I don't think he's doing much anymore, unfortunately, but he was very much a big deal in the 2000s, and he was like hired. He was the guy. It was like a thing. I believe he signed a contract. He was going to direct a live-action Metroid movie. It was going to become a reality, but a lot of things obviously happened behind the scenes that prevented it from being real and from actually happening, which is definitely a shame. It's sad to me because when I think of a Metroid movie, I think of so many things. I think of, honestly, if you go back and look at the live-action commercials for all of the Metroid Prime games, as well as Other M, I'm going to have hopefully some footage here of these playing. They were fantastic, man, and these were just low-budget, random early 2000s things for a video game. But when you look at it, it kind of gets you a little bit excited to picture a real live person playing Samus in an actual big-budget Hollywood film. That is just so exciting, and when you watch these, like, you know, cheesy commercials play out, it still kind of gets your Metroid nerd senses tingling, and it makes you just want to see something like that happen. And to know Nintendo was very close to making it real a decade or decade and a half ago, they had a very well-known action director at the time signed up to do it. It's just, it's so cool to imagine. And it kind of makes us a little bit sad, I think, for what could have been. Something I will say, though, when we think about 15 years ago and John Woo directing a Metroid movie, I'll say this. I feel like the Metroid movie we would have gotten in, like, the mid-2000s by John Woo, who, no offense to John Woo, because I like a lot of the things he has done, I think that that movie probably wouldn't have been the best. I wouldn't be surprised if the Metroid movie we got was something more akin to what the Prince of Persia movie turned out to be with Jake Gyllenhaal, which is not as bad as people will tell you. It's not like an outright turd, but it wasn't a very good movie. It wasn't exciting. It didn't deliver on all the great things that made Prince of Persia the games what they were at the time. And I would say it's quite a bit of a dud, you know? And same with, like, the Tomb Raider sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation sequel. I didn't see the recent Tomb Raider movie, but I hear it's not very good. The Assassin's Creed movie. I wouldn't want a Metroid movie to come out and be of that quality. I want it to be absolutely unreal. I want it to be a perfect slam dunk. It needs to land and hit and be iconic the same way. This is a weird kind of full circle thing. The same way the Alien franchise hit when those first two movies came out, which is cyclical because a lot of people may or may not know, Metroid, the series, was actually based on the original Alien movie. It was inspired by the original Alien movie. And Samus was very much inspired by Ellen Ripley, the character. And those made such an impact when they came out, and they are now iconic, and they are fantastic movies. I think a Metroid movie needs to come out and be as good as those movies. It needs to be of that quality. And like I was saying, a mid-2000s John Woo movie I don't think would have been that. Now, a way to do it nowadays, I actually think nowadays would be a great time to make a Metroid movie. I think there's a lot of actresses that could fill the role. I am personally completely on board with Brie Larson playing Samus. I never would have thought of it until she made that tweet and showed that picture. And now we see what she's going to be doing in Captain Marvel soon. I just feel like she's a perfect person to fill the role. And then I think about directors, and I have a couple choices. One of them is going to be controversial, but I'm going to stand by it. So the main directors I would like to see actually tackle this idea, first and foremost, would be the Wachowski siblings. Easily, the Wachowskis would be the best bet. They, of course, are known for the Matrix trilogy, as well as the fantastically underrated Speed Racer movie. Oh my freaking god, if you haven't seen that movie, you have to watch it. And they are so good with visuals, they are so good with action, they are so good with story and depth and world building. Just look at the Matrix trilogy, especially the first movie. And again, Speed Racer, they are the ones that I think could absolutely make a wonderful Metroid movie. I've said they would be great for making a Dragon Ball movie, to tell you the truth. So if there was any person or people who I think should make a Metroid movie, it's them, for sure. My controversial choice is Zack Snyder, and he's controversial because I know a lot of people actually hate Zack Snyder. They don't like the way he writes characters, they don't like his movies at all, they maybe hate his special effects and the way he directs stuff. And I get it, he's incredibly stylized, and so by definition of being that stylized, you're going to get people on both sides of the fence. They either love it or they absolutely hate it. I happen to be someone who loves it. I mean, he hasn't knocked everything out of the park. Batman vs. Superman was a pretty big letdown, and, you know, I actually liked Justice League, but that's weird because two directors, and it's just that was such a mess. So I get why he's a controversial choice. I think if we get the Zack Snyder, who was behind Man of Steel and 300 and Sucker Punch, which I think is also an underrated movie, that Zack Snyder would absolutely knock a Metroid movie out of the park. If he stuck to the proper character development, wrote her as the right character, and did the great world building and visuals and special effects, I think he would be perfect. Some other smaller choices that come to mind, like Brad Bird, for example, I think he would be pretty great. Bryan Singer, I know he's controversial because he's had other bad controversies in the past, but I like the way he's directed and told his X-Men stories, and so I wouldn't be opposed to a Bryan Singer doing it, but I would prefer Brad Bird for sure. Either way, you know, at the end of the day, the Wachowskis and Zack Snyder would be my first choice, and they would make, in a modern day, a better Metroid movie than I think a John Woo would have done in the 2000s. So at the end of the day, could we ever see this be a reality? Is there a world we live in where a Metroid movie could happen? And you know what? I'm gonna say yes. And it's probably foolish for me to say yes, but I'm going to say it, and I'm gonna stick to that. I feel like it makes sense now more than ever. We've seen a Nintendo who's very open to sharing their IPs and licensing them out and doing crazy things with them. They're doing cell phone games for the first time ever. They're building a Nintendo World theme park. They put, you know, their Nintendo and Mario characters in, like, Wreck-It Ralph, for example. And there's been talks, very serious talks recently, about them finally possibly working with Netflix for some sort of live-action or animated Legend of Zelda series. If we have a world where Nintendo is willing to start, you know, loaning out their properties and their IPs and characters to all of these different licensing opportunities in different mediums that aren't strictly Nintendo video games on Nintendo consoles, then I think anything is possible. And to me, that does include a Metroid movie. Is it a long shot? Probably, yeah, at least for a while. I feel like they might want to wait for Metroid Prime 4 to land, have a big impact, as I discussed recently, start kind of the revival and the rebirth of the Metroid name and franchise. And as it gains more and more clout, maybe then they realize they can make a kick-ass Metroid movie. We have to remember the very famous Super Mario Bros. Movie from the 90s that definitely soured them on doing live-action adaptations of their games without question. But I just think at this point we're so far removed from that. It's a new era of Nintendo. It's a new era of their IPs and licensing out to different mediums, like I said, that I just think that anything is possible, and I think a Metroid movie could happen. It still might be 10 years away, who knows, but I would love to see them jump on it sooner than later. I'd love to see them get proper talent behind it, work hand in hand to make sure it doesn't turn out to be a total stinker like Super Mario Bros. And if they get someone kick-ass like Brie Larson in the role, who clearly has expressed interest in playing Samus in a movie, then I say bring it on, man. It's time to finally make this dream happen. Us Metroid nerds have held on to the dream of a live-action Metroid movie for like 2 decades, man, and it's time to make it happen, so I think it's possible. What do you guys think? This has been a conversation for decades, like I said. Do you like the idea of a Metroid movie? Do you dislike the idea? What do you think about Brie Larson playing it? I mean, are you excited about her being Samus like I am, or do you have a better choice, maybe? A better actress who could fill the role more accurately? Whatever you think, talk about a Metroid movie below. I think it's a really fun idea. And with that being said, I'm going to call it. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on another video.